Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel and another impromptu new car purchase, a Peugeot 205 GTI. So what is it I have bought? Well, it is a 1988 Peugeot 205 GTI. For those of you who know about these cars, you'll immediately notice that it has the 1.9 wheels rather than the 1.6. However, this car is actually a 1.6, as you will see from the decals on here. And also on the V5, it's registered as a 1.6 as well. However, it does have quite a few special modifications, and I'll talk you through some of those as we go around. But before we do that, let's just give a brief walk around of the car, and I'll show you what it is that I've bought. So the history for this particular car is quite important for me because I always really rather fancied one of these when I was growing up as a child. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, these were super desirable cars. They are considered to be, and again, the jury's out as to whether or not it's the Golf GTI or whether it's this or something else. But these are certainly up there in the top 5 best iconic hot hatches. And again, debate is abound whether it's the 1.6 or the 1.9, but again, I'll let other people work that out rather than me. But this particular car, it was for sale on an auction site. I noticed it was quite fairly priced. I thought to myself, well, I'll have a bid on it. Wasn't really expecting to get anywhere, and I did, and I managed to win the car. And actually the car is in, I'll give it a walk around now, pretty good condition. So it has had a full respray. It's also had a nut and bolt restoration according to the previous owner. Again, we'll get into how much of that I think it has actually had and what it still needs doing. It does, however, have a few what I would call fairly nasty upgrades. So this particular exhaust here, these were very, very fashionable, I don't know, 20 years ago, but I think it just ruins the car. So one of the things I will certainly be doing is putting a stock exhaust back on there. I might actually have a custom stainless steel exhaust made, but let's see what the cost is. But beyond that, I don't know if it's been lowered. Again, for those of you who know about these cars, perhaps you can tell me. It does for me feel like it's lower than perhaps it should be, but I'm not sure it necessarily has. But as you can see, I mean, the paintwork is, and it's actually very dirty. It's actually really quite nice. It's had a respray, a proper respray with all the glass out as well. So the respray is in really good condition. The bonnet, again, a couple of things to do, doesn't line up, and I'll come into the reasons for that in just a few moments time. But apart from those small details, cosmetically, the car is really nice, and I love these yellow lights. And for anybody who was born in the 80s, you'll remember if you ever went to France on holiday, all the cars had yellow headlights, and of course they don't have those anymore. And I just love this nod to the kind of Frenchness of this car with those yellow lights. So that's the outside. So not really much to do out here. A little bit of work just to, as I said, get some of those kind of chav modifications off it. But underneath, the car is in really very good condition as well. So the axle is all new. The underside is pretty much eat your dinner off it. It's really super clean. So I think in terms of what I've bought cosmetically, it's good. Let's take a look through the interior. So inside here, we have this rather lovely leather interior, which again was an option, I think, on these cars. I suspect this has probably been put in here at some point. It does need a little bit of work on the bolsters, but this is actually pretty easy to do with a leather repair kit and a little bit of work down here in terms of restitching that. But otherwise, I think that leather interior will come up really well. All the carpets are pretty much factory fresh, actually, really very nice condition, no complaints at all. Much the same with the back. So I think in terms of the interior, it's a pretty nice place to be. We've got those lovely 1980s gauges, oil pressure, obviously temperature and other things as well. We don't have a stock radio, which is a bit of a shame, but never mind. Perhaps we can find one of those. But otherwise, I think it's pretty good. We don't have the sunroof in this car, which is a shame in some ways, but actually it used to leak quite a bit anyway. So probably a blessing in disguise, but really not much work to do in here. So here's the bit that is a little different from the standard 1.9 GTI. This is actually the GTI 6 Peugeot Mi16 engine. Which is fitted to the 405, and at some point in this car's life it's had this engine transplanted in here, and the engine has been, I guess, dressed is a nice way of putting it. So we have these yellow hoses, we have a strut brace, which is probably quite a good thing to have, and this rather nasty oil filter. So I think, again, might look at trying to put that back to stock, although the room in there looks pretty tight. The challenge with this engine was quite a struggle to fit into this car, which is also part of the reason why the bonnet isn't closing correctly. So we are just going to have a look at that and see if we can make that better. But it actually doesn't look too bad in here. Now, this car has been dyno tested with this engine. It's also just gone through an MOT, and this car is kicking out around about 180 brake horsepower. So the standard 1.6 GTI, I think, was 115, and the 1.9 was 130. So this is giving considerably more than that. Now, I have not yet driven this car. It has literally just arrived, and I might do some videos on driving it if people are interested in seeing that. But that's what's under the bonnet. So quite an interesting combination. So I think the plan with this car is, as I said, I bought it on a little bit of a whim, as I seem to buy most of my cars. But I think there's a few sensible things we can do to improve it. So I'm going to look at, first of all, doing something with that exhaust. I'm going to look at just tidying up the leather interior on here as well, trying to sort out that bonnet, making sure that shuts correctly, and then of course let's see what else it throws up once I drive it, but hopefully it will be okay. It has just passed an MOT. I've also got a massive history file with thousands of pounds worth of money that's been spent on this car as well, so I think it is probably quite a good one. It's always going to be marred by the fact it's not an original spec car, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of you jumping in the comments now telling me that, and of course I knew that when I bought it, but I also think it could be something quite special. So with that Mi16 engine from the 405, that really will make this car pretty powerful for a car that weighs around about 800 kilograms. It's got 180 brake horsepower, which doesn't sound like much in today's world, but certainly for a car of this era, that was a huge amount of power. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's get it sorted out, let's tidy it up, and then I'll see how I feel as to whether or not it remains in the fleet here, or whether or not I look to move it on and get something else. But certainly I have always wanted one. It's going to be great to just go out and drive one and have one for a few months, and we'll see how we get on with it. But I'll be posting some more of my journey as we do more on YouTube.